Good morning, everybody. It's time now for Liberty is Treason. I'm Ricky Tips, joined with Cody Booker. And Cody, Thanksgiving week here. And we're trying to talk about things we always discuss usually on the weekends, what we're going to talk about and kick around ideas. And this week I said, what about things we're thankful for here in this, 2020 season? Things we talk about and, what are some of the things that I guess have made us, pleased with what's going on in the political realm?
Well, as far as politics go, I'm going to struggle with that one because I don't know that there's a lot to be thankful for. So when you first approached me with this idea of being thankful, especially in the realm of politics, I struggled, but I did give it quite a bit of thought. And I think what I came up with is we're going to really have to address silver linings. Silver linings are those the good that we find in the bad sometimes. And a lot of times the good that we find in the bad allows us to retain some sort of thankfulness and some sort of hope and joy. And I really think one of these things, especially regarding politics, especially, is I think more than ever, as third parties like the Libertarian Party and Constitution Party continue to grow, I think more than ever that the reason for that is people are starting to understand that the Democrat and Republican parties are both machines that are wings of the same bird, and both stand counterproductive to the people and stand to promote more corporatocracy, corporations and whatnot, than they do the people. I think, especially with this last few seasons of federal elections, between our Senate and our House of Representatives who have record low approval numbers, our presidential candidates who have record low approval numbers. I mean, everybody has to admit, and I've talked to many people who do admit, that the last batch of presidential candidates don't exactly exemplify the best that America could have done. So I think, politically speaking, the wool is being pulled off of the public's eyes, and they're starting to see the machine for what it really is.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's one of the things I was thinking of is during this election cycle, you and I discussed it many times, and amongst our friends we've talked about it, how is this the best two candidates that we could have found? Out of the millions of people that live in the United States, how are these the top two political candidates that we could have put, either party could have put up there to run? And for me, I think you're right. It has opened people's eyes to there's got to be something better than what we're seeing right now. And I've heard a lot of people, very straight down the line red or straight down the line blue voters for many years. In the last few months, I've heard them say, maybe we need to look at a different way of doing this. Maybe there's another way and another system that we need to look at because this isn't working. And that's something that I guess I'm grateful for that. And I'm, even though it is more of a silent voice from the third party system that you're hearing out there, because, they're not allowed to speak on public platform like the others. They're not given the opportunity like the others are to get up there and talk and let their voice be heard. But I think with the social media the way it is now and the hundreds of news outlets that you can reach on a daily basis out there, that I think everyone now is getting their voice out there. It's not as strong as the two sides, the elephant and the donkey, but it is getting your voice out there, and it's getting people are starting to hear, and it's going to start making traction. That's something I'm grateful to hear that and see that happening.
Yeah, I am too. And as far as silver linings go, this being 2020's been I think we all recognize, that it's been a interesting and somewhat terrible year that may get worse, especially regarding COVID. But something I realized in a conversation with my wife the other day. My wife's been working at home since March, and been doing her job, adequately. And everybody agrees. I don't think as far as what she does, it's really changed her effectiveness or her department's effectiveness with them working from home. But during that conversation, I realized that my kids being home so much and my wife being home so much, I have had the opportunity to spend more time with my family this year than maybe ever. And the thought and when my wife thinks about going back to work, it breaks her heart. And when I think about her going back to work, it breaks her heart. And when I think about my kids going back to school and being away from me so often. It breaks my heart. So I'm thankful that this year has shown me what previous generations of Americans knew and felt. You know, the guys who lived on farms or our homesteads before there was public schools or whatnot, before they, you know, everybody, you know, shipped themselves off and sold out their labor to distant companies and distant cities. They really got a great sense of family, and they really got to know their family better than possibly we did before this happened.
So I guess, you know, that's a different perspective there, speaking of this, because a lot of people are kind of upset with isolation, but, you know, that is a strong point. I think people are getting as disconnected as you are from what we thought was a normal social circle and social, I guess, endeavors. Now you're getting back to more of the, you know, who really is in your circle? What friends do you really have that you actually make sure you have the time to go spend with them and see them and do things? You know, how do you keep those circles small enough that you're not being reckless, but you also keep those personal connections? You know, that's been key, I think, in this. You know, somebody commented the other day, said 2020 is the worst year I've ever experienced. And I said, this thing's only lasted 3 decades. It feels like this has been the longest year of my life. But I think you have a good point there. You know, if you look at it from that point of view of, you know, what have you gained from this? Well, you gained a lot of quality time that most people don't in our everything has to be now, fast food, paced life, that, you know, this year's brought everybody to a screeching halt and slowed them down. And, you know, you get to evaluate and examine what really is important.
And, you know, what you just said kind of lends credence to a thought that I had, and the thought is that, like love, you know, we can be in love, but we have to practice love. And I don't think it's good enough to be thankful without practicing thankfulness. And in more than just, you know, having a big feast and being around our families, but what you said about 2020, who, you know, and we all, at this point, I think we're all very well aware of how viruses spread, and it's going to be, you know, human-to-human contact in some way, shape, or form, or human-to-animal in some cases, or other ways. But for the most part, the danger is human-to-human contact. So who is it that you're so thankful for, that you're willing to risk exposure just to continue your relationships or to build your relationships or to practice thankfulness?
Yeah, so this is going to be it's an interesting year. You know, going back to, you know, the political side of this, and something we like to stress regularly, you know, this, you were talking about before we went on air, you and Dad were discussing the changeover for the president, and it looks like it is going to go through peacefully now, from what I'm understanding, right? That's what you're seeing?
Sure, I think so. I think the GSA administrator has finally signed the letter that allows the money to be opened up to the Biden administration to start doing the things they need to do, getting security clearances for certain people and putting certain people into spots. I think that happened yesterday.
You know, so, you know, I want to sit there and make everybody understand. I was talking to a good friend of mine that's pretty politically savvy yesterday, and we were discussing, you know, how the effect of the new president coming into play is going to be. And, you know, I told them, because they're a lot like most people here in Franklin County, upset how the election turned out. And I just told them, I said, you know, the president's not really, it's not a king, it's not a dictator, even though they have shown a little more power in the past, I would say 12 years than ever before. But the House and the Senate are still where you have to pay attention to what goes on. And it bothers me at how many people that don't keep track of what's going on a regular basis there. And, you know, the bills that are being brought and presented and voted on regularly that affect us, that no one ever really has a clue what's going on unless you are one of the few. And when I say few, there was a study done, it is less than 0.1% of Americans know what is going on in legislation on a daily basis.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this, and I think I'm a pretty savvy news consumer and probably at least average in politics. But I don't think we're in a position anymore to where, without a great reset, we will ever be to the paradigm that you describe, where you think we should be, where most of the public is informed. And the reason is because our politicians, over the last 100 years, the Democrat and the Republican Party have done everything they can to make it as complex as possible to keep the people out of it. They don't want us truly informed. Are you kidding? I mean, someone, I forget where I read the quote, but someone said, if you believe that the politicians will ever allow you to vote your way to freedom, you're out of your mind. And they don't want that. And I've tried many times to read bills, to read an actual federal bill, and they're huge. I mean, sometimes thousands and thousands of pages. They're filled with language that, I mean, sometimes dictionaries don't even have words for. You literally have to go to the glossary of the bill to find out what that word means. And then, they'll send you off 50 different rabbit holes, like, Section 2, Subpart B, Part 1 says that blah, 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 but in order to know this, but first, these are the exemptions on page 256, Sections A, B, and C. And that can go on for 10 or 15 minutes. But my point is it's just too complex for any of us. Until we really all just get fed up with both sides and quit endorsing one party or the other, thinking that one is any better than the other, and believing the media when they tell us that the other side is basically trying to attack our lives and our moral values and everything that makes us American or human. We have to stop believing that, because it's not the truth. It's only something that they tell you to keep you divided, to keep the partisanship alive. They want that alive. They need that. What, you don't think that Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell probably sit down to dinner together, behind closed doors, or have meetings together where they shake hands and agree on almost everything? They both agree that they're going to do this bill or that bill, or this action or that action that basically pads the pockets of this corporate sponsor who's feeding both of them. And if you don't believe me, go to Politico.com or 100 different websites, Ballotpedia, and look at who their sponsors are. Why is it that GM donates the maximum amount donatable to Trump and Biden? Why is it that they all do it, like all the way down the line? Because they all want and need favors from which they receive.
Well, you got to back your play. You don't just sit there and put all your eggs in one basket, because if that basket falls, you're in trouble.
Sure. Well, I'll buy one if I can buy them all.
Yeah. What's the best way to hedge a bet? Well, to own both sides of it.
But something that interests me is that and let me just preface this, and I have many times, I am not a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter. I can't stand either of them. But one thing that blows my mind is that Trump seems to be very aware of how history will treat him, as most presidents are. Their legacy is very important to them, as it would be to me, I suppose, also. But history is not going to be kind to President Trump for this temper tantrum and refusal to accept the fact that he lost this election, and not being able to provide any proof. I mean, we can go down the list of all the things that Trump has said, or Trump administration has said and done, that ended up not being true. But all he's really done is handed Joe Biden a golden get-out-of-jail-free card. Because now Biden, all he has to do is blame everything on we didn't get this transition done. Well, we didn't get this person in place. We couldn't do this. We couldn't do that because Trump stopped me. That's all he's done. So Biden's going to have a good 2 years of that. It's kind of like if you ever take like an upper management job and you replace somebody who was very bad, you've got a good 6 months to a year where you can blame any problems in the company on that guy. And I mean, Trump did it to Obama, and they most of them do it to some extent, but Trump has really given Joe Biden a golden get-out-of-jail-free card.
Speaking of, you and I discussed the some of the policies we thought that were ran on, that all of a sudden we're seeing some backpedaling of from Biden already. One of them was the legalization of marijuana was one of the things he was talking really strong about. And now I was reading the other day where he's kind of backing off of that a little bit.
Well, I think what you, as far as marijuana goes, we really got to see who he picks for Attorney General. And once it's all said and done, the Attorney General is the one that's going to really make the biggest play. Like Trump, he also promised to do something with marijuana, and he proceeded to put the biggest crime dog in Congress, Jeff Sessions, as his Attorney General. There was no chance in heck. But we'll see as far as that goes. I mean, I'll wait to see who he picks and wait to see what he does. But I mean, it's no secret that the corporate backers that have gotten Biden into place. I mean, Biden's been in politics, it's 1970. If there was any definition of a swamp rat, it would be Joe Biden. I mean, sure, he's probably done some good, but I'm sure he's done way more bad than good. I mean, I can list the bad he's done, and it would take an abacus. But the good that he's done, I really don't know of any good that he's done in office already. Which also points to the idea of, how did he make it that far? And it's funny, the whole illusion of choice thing. So if you get into logical fallacies, there's this thing called the illusion of choice, where we believe we have a choice, but we don't actually have a choice. It's like if someone were to, put a gun to your head and hand a gun to you or a knife and tell you that you needed to kill your pets. You got Spot on the left and Fufo on the right. That's not a choice, because still at the end of the day, the only result is very bad for you, right? Well, it's the same thing with our politicians. We don't have a choice. So you ask yourself, how did Joe Biden get there? We're like, well, we had a choice, through the primaries. We had all these candidates. We had 25 candidates or so. Well, the thing is those candidates most of them had no real illusions that they were going to win it. All they're doing is applying for cabinet positions and applying for vice president positions and stuff like that. Kamala Harris knew she was not going to win the presidency. She was playing for the VP role or applying for a cabinet position, right? Attorney General or something. Mm-hmm. She's a lawyer. That's all they're really doing. They knew from the onset of this who was going to take it, because that's how the machine works. It's like when it's your turn. He's been a Democratic, big dog since 1970. It's his turn, and now Trump kind of broke that on the Republican side, and I think historians will be trying to figure out the whole Trump thing for a long time. So, but that in the world of statistics, that's called an outlier. Trump, you definitely have to look at as an outlier. He doesn't play into the mold of all the previous Republican presidents at all. So I really don't know where you put Trump in that, or how we could even assess that. But what do you think?
I think he was a mouthpiece at the time where people were fed up, and we'd just gone through a mini recession, and people were tired of what the status quo, and he just came out screaming all the right things at the right time. And in a day and time of reality television, reality stars, and he was just perfect. It was a perfect storm for him to step into the political ring. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't that career politician. Even though anybody that tells me he wasn't a politician, it can take a back seat, because to be that successful in business,
he's the president. Of course, he's a politician.
Yeah, he's a politician. Like, that's the thing. Just for years and years to be able to build an empire like that, it's the reason why they're called empires. It's a political game that you play to get your business to that realm. Now, granted, he started off handicapped with a good little chunk of change from his dad, but to still stay at that level and to be able to maneuver himself into position over and over and over to amass, billion-dollar fortune.
Sure, he knew how to close a deal. He knows how to persuade people. He knows how to be the biggest character in the room.
And those are all, political attributes.
Sure.
So anybody to say he's not a politician is, mistaken on that one. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to manipulate a crowd. He knew how to, and that's the other side. Like I said, the reality TV side of it. The guy's been in the public eye for his entire life, since the 80s, and everyone knows him. He had a good reputation on both sides of the aisle. If you're a strict conservative and you really want to emphasize on the dollar side of it and the economic side of the government, this guy's, he's been bankrupt. He's found his way to build back up. He's done it all. He's built, like I said, an empire. And if you're on the liberal side of it, this guy's done everything you can think of in that realm as well. He's donated to the right people. He's been to the right, parties. He's shook hands with the right people and taken photos of the right people. So at that point, how do you not get elected if you've played enough of both sides of the line that you're going to pull enough votes to get in there? I just think he kind of crapped the bed in his 4 years in office.
Well, maybe. I really think that Trump may have been exactly what the conservatives wanted.
I think if Trump wouldn't have tweeted for 4 years, he gets reelected.
Yeah, I think so too. I said that the other day, if he'd kept his mouth shut, because his policies... I don't want to address whether I think his policies are good or bad. That's a moot point. But he gave the conservatives what they wanted. They wanted a wall. He really tried. They wanted something done about immigration. They wanted something done about illegal immigrants, especially the criminal illegal immigrants. And he tried. He did something. And that's one thing about Trump is he recognizes what his base wants, and he legitimately tries to give them what they want. But now analyze that in your mind for a second. The President of the United States wants something that millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of his supporters and constituents also want, and he can't get it done. Why is that? Doesn't that tell us right there that the machine is very, very broken?
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of people voted for the man. He got elected, and he still can't get what he wants done. And that lends back to that idea. I was talking to my son the other day, Sam, about politics, and something I've said for I was talking to Jesse, but something I've said for a long time. I've said that I think it's good that no president ever has a supermajority, that no president, like a Republican president, ever has a full Republican Congress, because then they could just get anything passed through. But now I think I'm going to backtrack on that. I think I'm going to completely change my mind, because when they have a supermajority, they have no excuse. If the Senate stays Republican, which we won't know in January because of Georgia, right? So if the Senate stays Republican, you'll have a Democratic House, and you'll have a Republican Senate, and you'll have a Democrat president. Well, again, that's another golden get-out-of-jail-free card for Joe Biden. All he's got to say was, sorry, just couldn't get marijuana passed, and blame it on Mitch McConnell, which, as you just discussed, nobody pays attention to Senate. The fact that the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, has to actually slate something on the calendar for it to even get heard by Senate, and that's the mechanism that him and Pelosi constantly use, is they do what's called tabling it, which means they just put it on the table and they won't address it. They don't even bring it up before Congress. They have that power, and they have that right. Furthermore, they have the power and the right to change the rules of how many votes it takes, everything else to get. That's what the Senate Majority Leader, the House Leader, does. But again, because if Biden, like I said, gets a Republican Senate, he'll have another get-out-of-jail-free card. So he's pretty much got 4 years of can do no wrong, and then either he'll run again or retire. I think he'll be 82? Is that right?
Yeah.
When he finishes his first term, so it puts him at 86. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But
if he gets reelected, he will be the oldest president ever in office.
And I mean, I think every older person knows that this isn't a jab at all. But science has proven that as you get older, your cognitive abilities and your mental faculties do diminish. Your memory diminishes and everything else. So my question to the American people, Frank County, everybody is, when are we going to start electing like 45-year-old genius types that, like the 185 Mensa guys that really do have solutions or really do have the ability to pull the right people into the right room and come up with real solutions?
Why would they run?
Yeah, when Google's paying them $500 million?
Yeah. Why would you run? Why would you run for office? If you're, even Facebook King there, Zuck. Why would you run for office?
Some sense of selflessness, some sense of duty. I mean, why did you join the Army? Why did I join the Army? Why did we agree to get paid?
Yeah, but
I think I calculated $1.73 an hour at one point. Why did we agree to do that?
We weren't making millions of dollars beforehand.
But that's more of a reason to do that. That's more of a reason to say, okay, I've got enough money. Let me go serve my country.
I will say that is the one thing I give Trump a lot of credit for, was taking a pay cut to be president for 4 years.
Sure, and
because he lost millions of dollars.
Well, no, he didn't, because of emoluments. He refused to give up his companies. He never.
No, he lost government contracts.
I don't know if that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There were government contracts he had to give up because he couldn't have.
What government contracts would the Trump real estate fortune have?
He had a few where his entities were located inside his buildings, and he had cleaning crews that were cleaning government offices that he had to give up. He had businesses that
I'm
had.
I'll call you for a source on that. I've not heard that at all.
Yeah, he had.
Furthermore, he actually relocated the G20 summit to Trump's hotels so that he could charge $13,187 per night to everybody that stayed there.
I'm just saying,
he
lost
$4 for a glass of water.
He lost some money on this deal, but still, to go from where you were, he wasn't hated by anybody before he was president. People didn't like Trump, but not pure hatred like there is now.
I thought his show was hilarious, but
yeah. But I'm saying, like, it's so there's, the guy.
I'm kind of looking forward to it being over to see what show he starts next.
So it's the guy stepped out on a limb.
I see your point, yeah. But although with Trump it may be more to do with megalomania and narcissism than.
But either way,
then a sense of duty is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't see anybody else after Trump stepping in and doing that. I think what's happened to him over the last 4 years will probably hinder anyone who actually had a thought of doing it.
Or maybe my hope is that it will energize his base and the people who really believed in him to stop voting for the status quo, to stop believing that these people, to do something else. To, vote third party, something. Something needs to change in this country. Our political spectrum is broken.
I've got now I hate the term
federally, I'll say. Some states do a pretty good job. I think Tennessee does.
I hate the term third party. Because it makes me, right there, there's two parties, and then all these others are, also random.
Well, it's just a fact. It's like the sun is called the sun, the moon is called the moon.
I just hate the term third party because it for me, it just flat out lets you know that there's, it's almost like third world.
Sure.
It's just one of those things where it's...
And if third parties do win, they're anomalies, and if independents do win, they're anomalies, and they never last.
Or they don't ever stay independent.
Right, sure.
That's the other side of it. It's a slippery slope when these guys get in.
You don't change the Democrat-Republican Party, they change you.
But, I went back and watched the last episode we did when Cole was in here. And I was so impressed in listening to some of the things he was talking about. And you and I have discussed it many times. I still don't feel that... I feel we put too much emphasis on the federal government, not enough on local. And I don't think that's where, the federal government's not going to... I don't think it's going to change. You've said it many times. There's too many dollars invested into the federal government to ever change the way it's being ran. But the local government's not that way. There's still dollars invested, but not to that magnitude where, anyone could run, and as long as they have a strong enough platform, I feel they could get into office in a local. Your friend Cole, neither side really wanted to see that storm come their direction, but he still got elected because of what he said and what he meant and how his actions.
And if anybody's really interested in some interesting tabloid TV as far as politics goes, if you're a political junkie, you should go to Smith County, which is Carthage, and watch one of their city council meetings if you want to see what a libertarian does to a city council. How he puts their feet to the fire and he calls them on their BS. He won't let them table issues. He makes them resolve issues. He goes line by line down the budget, one line at a time, making them justify, and boy, do they get mad. The mayor tries to shut conversations down, tries to gavel them out, even though they don't have the right. They have to refer the actual city attorney over and over. I followed the whole Robin Smith Deckard thing because it was brilliant daytime television. But you should watch the Carthage one. It's pretty brilliant also.
So for me, I think that's what we got to go on. I want to go back to, I guess, where we started with of being thankful. I'm thankful that we have enough people in Franklin County who came out and voted in this last election that I want to see that same turnout come again 2 years from now when we see our next county elections. Because honest to God, if you want to look at what affects you more than anything, it's your county government, your local government, and that's the thing that really needs to we need to keep. I want to keep hammering that nail as long as I can until 2 years from now comes up and we have the election for 16 county commission seats, the county mayor, sheriff.
Are you announcing your candidacy, Ricky, for county commission?
No. One, I couldn't be on the radio.
I can see it in your eyes.
I couldn't be on the radio if I did.
Oh, nobody cares about the Hatch Act anymore, dude. That's gone completely out the window.
But I'm wanting people to come out. I want to see the 40,000 individuals vote. I want to see everybody in Franklin County come out and cast a ballot. I want to see that.
But again, even locally, you're kind of hindered by the exact same thing. You've got the illusion of choice because Republicans are just going to win because the body politic has been so inundated with propaganda that one side is better than the other, one side is attacking your values, and the other's not.
So,
and they
tell me one. This is going to be, I know your answer already. I'm just going to throw it out there so everybody else can hear it. Tell me one reason why it matters if you're a county commissioner and you have an R or a D next to your name.
Well, I'm not even sure if Franklin County is Franklin County partisan as far as so counties can choose whether they're a partisan commission or not. A lot of them in Tennessee I know are not, but I thought Franklin County wasn't partisan, but they are partisan.
What's it matter? Like if you run for county commission, why does it matter if you have an R or D?
Because the Republican Party limits you to who can run. For instance, the Republican Party changed the rules. It used to be 3, but now it's 4. So unless you've voted in the last 4 Republican primaries and you consider you're Republican, you can't run at all. And by running as a Republican, you're an automatic win. So say you did primary. So the county commission has primary?
Mm-hmm.
So say you primary to county commission, I mean, you'd be running against a bunch of other Republicans, but one of the guys in Franklin County on the Republican side will win. The independents will not win.
We've had 2 independents win the county commission the last 2 years, last 2 cycles. We've had...
Did they run unopposed?
No.
Why did they run as independents?
Because they didn't... You have to ask them. My gut feeling is they don't really align with either side. Or they don't align.
Or they didn't qualify for the primary.
Oh, no, they qualified for the primary. They've been fine. One of them's been a sitting county commissioner for several years now. But mine is maybe they don't really feel that strong about one party or the other to put their name on it. Me personally,
that's an interesting show idea. Why don't you get them on the show and we can ask them?
I can do that. That's not a problem. I have a problem with the Republican Democrat for local government. One, I don't understand the primary. Why we have to pay extra for a primary for local government? Let everybody run that wants to run.
Candidates, right?
Yeah, let everybody wants to run. I don't know. Put 40 people on the ballot. I don't care.
Well, what the state cites, and they fought us on this with the Libertarian Party, Trey Owens did, is how much more money that would cost.
But it wouldn't.
We tried to get them to justify that, but they threw out some absurd number, and it actually went through legislature, went through committee, the finance committee, to see if, and they said it was like it would add like $2 million more onto. So that was the reason why the Libertarians, if you remember, not this last election, but the election before that, you remember there were 51 candidates that ran for governor?
Mm-hmm.
They were all Libertarians, other than the big ones.
Yeah.
But because it was a protest vote, because they did that for that very reason, just to prove that Trey Owens was wrong, and of course he was wrong. It did not cost the electorate that much money to do that.
Yeah, that's something I would like to see. I would like to see go into play there. I would enjoy to see Franklin County not have to do the primaries for either side. But going back to when you have 71% of the electoral, in Franklin County vote for a presidential election, but then you turn around and have 34% vote for county commission. I know everyone listening is like, you beat this down all the time, but I just want to keep telling and keep pushing it out there. You're telling me that half the people who voted for presidential election could care less who runs their county government, who sets their tax levy for their property taxes, who sets, where the money's going in the governmental budget, the budget here for Franklin County. Half of those people who voted for a president that really isn't going to affect them one way or the other could care less about who's setting their taxes here in the county.
You know me pretty well, and I'm often seen as a waffler or a flip-flopper because I change my mind pretty often.
I think you should. That's the thing that kills me. I hate that. All right, you'll tell me I'm a waffler. That's fine. That's great. Call me whatever you want to. If you are not studying and paying enough attention to what's going on, and that's why you sit straight down one way or the other, one line, conservative or liberal, however you want to sit there and look at it, and you don't pay attention to what's happening around you, then that's the problem. If you call somebody a waffler because, you were a libertarian a few months ago, and now you're kind of leaning more conservative or you're leaning more liberal now, yes, because I've done research and I've studied and I've learned this is what is happening, and I'm pushing for this person because I believe in what they're doing. It doesn't matter if they're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or Green Party or Libertarian. This is the person that's going to be best for the job, and that's who I'm pushing for in this election.
When faced with new data or a new truth, you changed your mind is the voice of an intellectual. It's not a bad thing. It's a smart thing.
I'm sorry I opened my eyes and I read something besides Facebook and a GIF.
Where I was going with that was I'm about to oscillate on something else. So I know I've said to you many times on our show and privately that I don't know why people got so consumed with the federal government when, if you look out your window, the federal government doesn't really touch you. For the most part, none of us are ever really charged with federal crimes or really have anything to do with the federal government other than, sending our sons off to serve in the military or whatnot. But after I reflected on that quite a bit, and as I paid my $15,000 IRS bill for last year, what I owed the federal government in taxes, And then I look through my finances, and I'm struggling to try to, send sons to college and whatnot. And I think, wow, that $15,000 would have done me a lot of good in sending my kid to school or helping one of them get a business started or whatnot. Well, then I think of the things that the federal government does in my name because they give them my dollars, and morally and ethically that's weighed on me a lot. And I'm extremely anti-war. And, so, I have to think that some part of my paycheck is going toward, bombing brown kids in Yemen, and some part of my paycheck is going toward detaining, Mexican children at the border or building a wall. All things, while I know some of my countrymen agree with those things, and that's fine. That's how politics and that's how reasonable discourse works. But I do not. So, in that way, it does affect me when they do things in my name that I don't agree with morally, ethically. A lot of Christians have had the problems with government financing stem cell research or government financing abortion with Planned Parenthood or those things. Well, it's the same thing, with bombing brown kids and detaining brown kids for me.
You got to look at.
But you're right. If we're going to change it, we have to start from the bottom up, because like Janice Bowling, for instance, who's our state senator, and I believe that she's on her way politically to maybe being something greater than a state senator, started as a city councilman, right? She was a school teacher, and then she moved to city council. That's how they progress up. So you have to think that some of our county commissioners are going to progress up to be representatives, or, Iris Rudder was.
That's what Iris, yeah.
Right. She was a county commissioner, and now she's progressed up to representative, and she may yet continue to progress up. So if we're going to fix the body politic, you're right, it has to start at the bottom. We're way better off focusing with what's right next door, because the fact is one of my county commissioners literally lives in my neighborhood. I can drive 4 houses down the road, knock on his door and talk to him, and he'll talk to me.
But that's, for me, that's the big thing, is we're never going to be able to compete with the dollars that are thrown at some of these federal guys. But there's not that kind of money being slung around when it comes to a local election, where I think the person willing to fight for the everyday individual can still get elected. I think there's many candidates out there that are willing to do what they feel is best for their constituents in local politics, that we can get out there and they can get elected locally and make a difference in this area. I would actually go out there and say there's not many people that attend more local government meetings than I do.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
And
that's why you should run.
I think that no. I think that that's a shame that there's not more people out there going to these meetings and learning what's actually happening on a regular basis, where your money's going, who's spending your money, and how are they spending your money. Keep these people's feet to the fire. And I'll tell you, I think we actually have a really good county commission that has done a good job in this last cycle of trying to be a little more reserved. And, I'll go out there, and I actually think it's the one in your neighborhood, David Eldridge. I really appreciate the way he goes through the budget and asks questions and asks why we're spending this money and why do we have to spend it now. Why does this need to come out at this moment? Why can't we hold off and, maybe look at it at another date and see if there's a better way of utilizing it or doing this? I appreciate county commissioners like that. I would like to see more individuals come into it, but you made a very good point with the age earlier in the show. I would like to see more people your age, my age, be interested in what's going on, interested in the political side, because that's, we need more youth or younger individuals involved in what's going on.
But we're just so busy in our lives, and it's so time consuming. And not only is it time consuming, but it requires a certain intellect and a certain discernment of abilities. The ability to sit down and read budgets, to read very boring and bland things like financial statements. It takes a lot to be a good politician. And when I considered running for actually the seat that Iris occupies now, our state representative spot, a couple of years ago, and I actually spoke to Iris about it. But one of the things that held me back at the time was the fact that a representative really doesn't make a lot of money. So if you are a state representative in Tennessee, here's what it requires. It requires from about January to May-ish. Nobody really knows, because legislature can wrap like kind of whenever they want, depending on what's on the table and what's not. But it requires the first few months of a year being able to go to Nashville, 2, 3, 4 days a week and still hold down a job. How do you do that? It's kind of like one of those things. I don't know. Do we need a law? Do we need a law that says that employers have to retain your spot? Well, what happens if you're in a critical position? Do they hire another guy for $85,000 to manage a full department for a couple of months while you're gone, playing politics? I mean, most companies can't pull that off.
I honestly feel like it should be the same thing as the National Guard.
And that's why you have so many retired people up there.
Yeah, but I think it's the same as the National Guard. National Guard sends you out, it calls you up, and you have to go get deployed. You can't lose your job because of that. I think
that may already be a law. I don't know.
I know that's the thing with the National Guard. So I think that's something that should be done in effect in this situation as well. Is you can't lose your job over having to serve, being a public servant.
And then self-employed people are just done, right?
That's why it's hard for self-employed to be able to do it, to be able to run for any office.
And it's the same thing with county commission. I don't know, but I know a few commissioners, and they say it's extraordinarily time-consuming and stressful, and they get hate calls and good calls, and it's we really should be thankful for them and appreciate them, even just because of the burden they take on for all of us in that way.
Yeah, and that's as many times as I complain about someone's the way they voted or the way they did something. I do want to step back, like you said, and it is tough, and they were willing to step up and take on this role and take on this responsibility because it's not easy. You're not going to please everyone with any vote. I don't care what the vote is. When they had to raise the taxes a couple years ago, I know everyone in Franklin County was upset about it. But there's a few of us that were sitting there thinking, if you'd done this gradually over the last several years, no one would even noticed, and that money would have already been there. We wouldn't be in trouble that we're already in. But then again, do you want to get taxed and have money just sitting aside that the government can hold on to? So, there's a two-edged sword to that as well. There's a lot of things that go into play when it comes to, these people and sitting in this position. And I'm very, I'm grateful for the individuals who are willing to step up and take these roles. And, I think it's going to be interesting in the next 18 months to see who's going to be the next crop to step up and try to help out and to serve in these facilities.
I don't know if our airwaves will reach out to where he is. He's in Coffee County, but my third favorite politician is a man named Shane Michael Welcher, and he's the county commissioner. I think he lives in Warren County, actually, but not Coffee. But after every vote and after every decision that he makes as a council member, he posts on Facebook why and what the bill said and exactly his reasoning behind it. And I think it's so often in our society that we let the media, throw a headline out there or spin something in a way that makes it appear in a way that it isn't really is, and we don't analyze the slippery slope that could happen if you did allow that or you didn't allow that. And I really think that's something that, back to what you said, to echo what you said, if we as the public were more aware of what bills were being passed, what was being discussed, then we can force more scrutiny and force them to explain themselves. But right now, when nobody even knows, they can just operate with impunity, and we're just left to hope that the good nature of the person representing us is in our best interest.
I feel that government is tragically and drastically underutilizing social media when it comes to that aspect. And as much as earlier I said Trump would just tweet less to be better off, but I think there's, like you said, the guy there that goes on there and explains what the bill is and why he voted the way he was. I know that's time consuming. It took probably about 10 minutes for him to type that up before he sent it.
Does the Franklin County Commission have its own Facebook page?
It should. I don't think so.
And everything that goes on there should be a live video, live streamed, and a video you can go back and see, and public comments on it. That'd be a great idea.
But I know that there are some politicians that go out there. I enjoy reading Scott Deserlay's post and seeing what he puts on when he does, because he's very active when it comes to things like that and telling people how they are, and I enjoy reading it. Sometimes I don't agree with what he posts, but I enjoy the fact that he puts it out there for people to see it.
But not everybody's a political junkie. Like, my wife could care less.
Well, I know, and but there are several that do care, and that's the thing I like about it. I like the fact that it's there. You don't have to read it. You can skip right through it.
Sure.
You don't have to follow someone on social media. That's your thing. That's your choice. It's your social media.
Well, I deleted all my social media.
Thank God. And but it's one of those things that your option. You don't have to. And then, we talked about this before too. That's because politics now is, it's you get to choose what you want to listen to and what you want to hear when it comes to, media discussing politics. It's Baskin Robbins nowadays. You pick what flavor you want, and that's the one you get to go with. I really I enjoy the transparency. Now, I don't know who this guy is that you're talking about, but I'm going to look him up just because I want to read the post.
Shane Michael Welcher. I think his brother Blaine is also a county commissioner.
Yeah. So those are things that I think that...
And he's very interesting because he calls them out on the truth and makes them mad, buddy.
But as a whole, I'm excited about seeing, in 2 years, what comes out of this, and how many people are willing to keep their feet turning and keep, this. I've never in my lifetime seen that many people come out for an election. No one has. It's the biggest election ever that's happened in the United States. I want to see how that transpires or what goes through in 2 more years, how big of a drop-off it is.
Well, I think midterms you're not going to see any change. I mean, I get this feeling in my gut that you're basically about to see just a return to Democrat vanilla politics, no different than the Obama administration. It'll be identical or the same. And I don't think the midterms, but what I do find really interesting is what's going to happen in 4 years. So if the popularity of Trump will lead to another celebrity type, demagogue, populist type, like Trump type, to run for the presidency and maybe, grab America by the heart the way Trump did. Or maybe Trump runs again. He can.
So.
Or maybe Ivanka runs.
I want to throw out there one more thing. We talk about dates. There is still one more big date coming up for this presidential election that people really don't pay attention to, and that's December 14th. Yeah. And explain that one more time to people.
December 14th is when the electors actually, according to the Constitution, have to fly to Washington and physically cast their vote for president, vice president.
I know it is very, very rare that someone doesn't vote the way that the constituents voted in their region, but it has happened.
Well, I feel like we were one of the first media outlets that actually brought this up months ago, the possibility. I knew it was a possibility, but it's been addressed now by many GOP lawmakers. It's been addressed by CNN, Fox. Everybody's done articles on it, and most everyone agrees that there's literally a snowball's chance in heck that occurs, that the electors become faithless, is what they call it, and flip their vote to Trump. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So it was just, but it is a possibility. And that's the one thing I think everybody's kind of, if you're.
Or the other possibility, God forbid, would be that the president-elect were to pass away or something like that. And then I believe it goes to Congress to decide what to do, because nobody really knows. It's unprecedented.
So there are some interesting twists that could come out of this, and no one really expects it to be crazy like that, but it is a possibility.
As we wrap up, and we're about to wrap up, I can't help but reflect on, as I drove through Estill Springs this morning, I looked over to the little restaurant on the right-hand side that I passed, and it was packed as news media outlets decry, the pandemic and how many people are dying and the death toll. And I'm kind of torn on that, because in one way, I respect America very much, and I respect American freedom very much, and I respect people's courage and not giving in to fear or panicking in a lot of ways, even though we seem to be in the greatest upheaval, socioeconomically, politically, and just personally that any of us have seen in our lifetimes with the COVID pandemic. But on the other hand, I think that people should use caution. But again, that's just my opinion. And while I don't believe that the government has any right to mandate what people should do, whether they should wear masks, how they should do Thanksgiving, what restaurants they can or can't go into, I would urge caution. But in that way, I'm proud of America. I'm not proud of America for having the huge death toll, for that many people dying. But that's not really what America is. We are a country that built ourselves on courage, that we're built by people who packed everything they owned and their kids in tow and went on boats for months and months across a terribly dangerous ocean and landed on a foreign land full of Indians and bears and diseases and set up camp and took it over and became the most prosperous country in the world. And Benjamin Franklin said, liberty necessitates the existence of some evil. You have to allow some things to exist, some evils to exist. You can't bubble wrap the world. You can't fix everything. You can't expect government to. And, as I watch CNN, because it's almost like the CNN side of the world thinks that, government should control everything and fix everything, but that's not the way it works. The people have to do it. And when you do that, you basically give the government so much control that the people no longer have the freedom. And we are a free country. And if we want to stay that way, keep on being you. Keep on doing what you do. If you want to risk it and go eat a pizza or you want to risk it, that's on you. I hope that you don't risk other people, but that's on you. If you want to be the brave one that stands in the front, be brave, because that's what America's all about. And I guess lastly, what I'd like to say is there's an old story, and it's not actually in the Bible, but a lot of people think it is. But it's a story. It is a story of King Solomon. It's an old Jewish story. And King Solomon had a really wise servant, and his wisest servant, and the servant never had failure. He had never failed in his life. So King Solomon, being King Solomon, thought that it was his job to help show the guy a little bit of humility, because his hubris was getting a little bit out of hand. So he sent him on a task that was impossible. He sent him on the task to find a magical ring, and the magical ring that he told him to find would, if you put it on, would make a sad man happy and a happy man sad. Of course, the guy struggled, and he went everywhere, went to the ends of the earth. He exhausted all sorts of resources and means, and he finally had to come back to King Solomon and said, I can't find it. And King Solomon encouraged him, and he said, I really want you to find it. I know it's out there, and please go find it. Well, when he left to go find it the second time, King Solomon had his jewelers make a ring, and in the inside of the ring, in Hebrew, it said, "This, as all things do, shall pass." And he let him find the ring. And I just want to let everybody know that as bad as 2020 seems, and as bad as politics seems, and as bad as the media tries to make things seem, that this too will pass. And tomorrow the sun will shine in the east as it always has. The east will continue to put out record crops of yellow rice and yellow children, and the world will continue to spin. It's not going to end. It's not going to end for everything. And one day we all pass and leave this earth, whether it's tomorrow or whether it's in 10 years. We just do the best we can and keep on being strong and keep on being American.
All right, thanks for tuning in this week to our episode of Liberty is Treason. We'll catch you on 2 weeks here on WCDT.